Last time we spoke with the Centrifuge team, they were fresh off a surprise victory for Kusama. But today they stopped by to tell us about their upcoming Polkadot bid and explain why there might be an opening for a DeFi politician in the near future. Hi there, and welcome to the Parachain Auctions podcast hosted by Kraken. I'm Brian Hoffman, Crypto Platform Product Lead, and I'm glad you could join me out here on the cutting edge of crypto technologies. On this show, you'll hear from leaders and innovators in Parachains from around the world. Tune in for insights from the best and brightest about their new projects. Whether this is the first you've ever heard of Parachains or you're a DeFi aficionado, come with us behind the scenes as we explore the technology of the future today. Today, we welcome back Lucas Vogelsang, who's co-founder and CEO of Centrifuge, along with Cassidy Daly, who's a token engineer there. To catch everyone up, we've had Cassidy join us for our intro to Centrifuge's Kusama project, Altair. And in a later episode, we had a chance to catch up with Lucas. Welcome back to the show, guys. It's like great to have you. This is the third time we've gotten to chat with the team.
Yeah, it's cool to be back.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Yeah, so really exciting developments with you guys. Like the win that you guys had for the ninth slot auction was pretty incredible. I remember hearing that you guys actually were pretty surprised yourselves that it had happened and were kind of catching up with everything. Since then, how has everything been? Have you guys gotten yourselves organized again and comfortable with the fact that you have a parachain now?
Yeah, like honestly, the time is all a bit blurry, so I don't even know how many weeks ago it was that we were talking about this. It feels like it could have been forever or just yesterday. But no, like since we won the slot, we've actually been super busy with rolling out our Parachain Altair on Kusama. And right, like getting the slot is just it's definitely not the first step. That's the auctions and winning them, but then like there's quite a few steps after that still. So we've been gradually rolling out functionality, and actually are now, I think, at probably the most interesting point in the launch. Specifically, we're actually have a campaign for council members to get elected. So to propose and then get elected, so that we actually launch the full functionality of Altair with a community decided and community sort of driven council, as it's very important for us to sort of like make sure that Altair is run by the community, by the token holders, is governed by them, as well as including me, of course, and some of our team members, but really put together a council to set this up for success. And in the coming days, we're hoping to push out the next runtime upgrade that will actually enable democracy, the palette in Substrate that will allow all of this on-chain governance to be to happen. So that's where we are with Altair. At that point, once the council is elected by token holders, then the council is actually in control of the network, and the council can propose democracy votes for new functionality. And probably the most exciting and biggest change is both the Sudo key removal, which removes sort of the initial account that was used to launch a chain that is under control of the sort of the Centrifuge core team, and with that probably enable transfers, so making AIR really usable for and transferable, right? After that, we're gonna push the first functionality, which is going to be NFT Studio. This is basically an NFT creator and sort of like collecting visualization interface for using those NFTs that can then at a later point actually be used in tin lake pools that we have. So to then borrow and lend against them. That's the short to midterm roadmap. So still very much in the launch process of Altair. And at the same time, obviously, Parachain, crowdloan, is high up on our list. Maybe probably number one of things we're doing right now. And maybe Cassidy, you want to say what's going on here?
Yeah, did you want to jump into a specific question there, Brian?
I was going to say, out of all the podcasts we've done with teams who've won a slot, we always mention the fact that there's this great milestone where the Sudo key is removed. But I don't think we've ever really educated the audience on like, what does that even mean? Why is it important? And like, what are some of the potential problems if you do that prematurely? Like, what is the importance of removing the Sudo key?
I mean, the Sudo key is basically like this back door, if you will, or like, the key to the city. And removing that is important because it takes away having complete control of the network from whoever holds that Sudo key. And in this case, it's, our core, the Centrifuge core team. Because then otherwise, you don't actually have a decentralized network. You don't have a chain that's really controlled by the token holders themselves. So it is really important to remove that key. But like you said, doing it prematurely can open up a lot of problems if things go wrong and you're not able to fix them quickly. So the reason why all of these Parachain teams have had it at all in the beginning is because these are super new technologies and no one has done this Parachain launch process before. And so, expect chaos, right? We knew things were going to go wrong. And so having the Sudo key there in the beginning was important to make sure we could really quickly deal with different things that come up. But it's also, even more important to take that away once the time is right.
So, all of the teams we've talked to have had their own interesting quirks and challenges, trying to get to transferability. For example, one team we spoke to didn't allocate themselves their own token. And so they couldn't pay the gas to do some changes on chain and had to borrow them, which is like, a weird, foresight issue. But like, are there any challenges that you guys experienced so far since the win that you didn't expect? And like, how did you get through those?
We did. We on a test net. We did the same mistake. Luckily, we did it on a test net, so that didn't affect us. But we do. So one of the quirks we definitely experience is like Parity keeps shipping new versions of Substrate, the underlying technology, the libraries we use to build the chain. And while we test every single release on multiple test nets in like as close to realistic cases as possible, we did actually manage to brick our chain for actually like over 24 hours. We were luckily able to recover, but this was related to the token vestings that where Parity made a change in how those were stored on chain, and somehow it was just small enough for everyone else, or didn't cause anyone else issues when they did an upgrade, but it did cause it for us. Some producing a block took too long, so we couldn't put new blocks in. We actually managed to fix that by just renting a very beefy machine on one of our collators, and they were able to produce a block and or propose a block and push it through. And that was definitely an adventure. Cost us a bit of a delay, but didn't end up in having actually to reach out to Kusama governance and ask for like a complete reset of the chain, which would be sort of the worst case scenario, right? When the parachain is non-recoverable anymore. But for a long time, we thought that was the only thing that was left until we figured out a way to sort of like fix the performance issues that this upgrade had. So that was actually, I think, a similar kind of experience, maybe mishap that those happen.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the good things about being able to build out on a Canary chain is that you hopefully, if you're going to do a Polkadot chain, you won't experience those same issues, or at least you hope that you've learned a little bit from them. So do you think that, I mean, just for clarity to the audience, you guys are also pursuing a Polkadot parachain, which is called Centrifuge. Do you guys foresee that being an easier rollout based on what you've learned so far, or are you expecting there are going to be some other unique challenges that you just aren't aware of at this point?
I think that's a good question. We're definitely learning a lot from the Altair rollout that I think will make those specific problems easier with Centrifuge Chain. And by the way, yeah, that crowd loan opens December 15th for us, so we're excited about that. But that doesn't discount the fact that there could be new problems that come up that we don't foresee. But that's the whole point of Kusama and Altair, our Kusama chain, is to hopefully bring up everything that could go wrong there first, so that it doesn't go wrong for Centrifuge Chain.
So let's just take a quick step back from all of this. We kind of just jumped right into like the Parachain auctions and what's happened since then. And I know we've done 2 previous podcasts, which, you know, anybody listening can go to our channel and find those and learn more about Altair. But like, can you guys just give me like a real quick synopsis of like, what exactly are you guys trying to do with Altair and Centrifuge?
Yeah. So Altair is like the experimental little brother or little cousin, if you will, to Centrifuge Chain. Centrifuge Chain has actually been live since May 2020, which is pretty exciting that we were able to already get that live as a standalone substrate chain. And we see that really as real world DeFi. So what we're doing with Centrifuge is tokenizing real world assets and financing them on chain by plugging into DeFi liquidity in places like Maker and really soon Aave as well. And so Altair is really pushing the boundaries of what we're already doing on Centrifuge. So focusing on more fringe use cases, for example, financing like art NFTs. So maybe even something like CryptoPunks or Remark has some really great NFTs on Kusama now. So those are some of the, you know, maybe more boundary pushing things we can do on Altair as opposed to Centrifuge.
So we recently got to catch back up with the Kilt team. We spoke with Ingo, and they're doing some really interesting stuff. I heard you guys are doing some kind of integration with Kilt around asset identification. Maybe you could talk a little bit about that?
We've been working with Kilt on, you know, how we could basically integrate together. And I think, you know, for us, that's one of the most important things is being able to have integrations and interoperability with different products in both the Kusama and the Polkadot ecosystems. And so with Kilt, you know, being another team that we've followed closely with the Kusama auctions, we started talking with them about how we could start using their and identity infrastructure to do things like, for example, verify different assets that we finance on Centrifuge. So basically being able to prove that this asset exists, that it has a specific value, and use that basically to add, you know, another layer of security and risk assessment to Centrifuge and how it works, as well as Altair.
So Lucas, today I was checking out centrifuge.io and I saw you guys are like closing in on almost $50 million of value locked on the platform. This is pretty incredible. Like, how has the progress been for that product? And like, how are you like looking at ways to incentivize more growth in the future?
Yeah, so 50 million is, yeah, it's a cool milestone, right? Like this is 50 millions of loans that were actually went to like businesses and individuals all around the world, like getting turned from like DAI or USDC into dollars, and then like actually like financing houses and farmland and trade finance, right? So it is cool. We've been basically like our mission is to onboard as many new people to DeFi, and those are almost $50 million worth of loans of like users who oftentimes actually don't even know that they're using DeFi to borrow money. A lot of times they're just like getting dollars from one of our issuers and are happy to be able to buy and renovate a house or get paid for an invoice early. I think this is like an extremely novel way, I think, in DeFi. If you look at DeFi today, most of it is like people trading with crypto native assets like DOT, ETH, KSM, Bitcoin, Wrap Bitcoin. And so a lot of times it is like crypto users using DeFi to margin trade or to like borrow against their collateral, right? What we're doing is actually we're saying, oh, DeFi is not just that; it can actually also be it can be infrastructure for the whole world. And so bringing these new users on, we're sort of pushing the boundaries of a lot of this stuff, using DeFi as this underlying rails, right? Instead of banks, we use DeFi to advance money to people. And so I think the most important thing that we're doing is just like really like bootstrapping this marketplace, going from like we were at less than 5 million TVL at the end of last year, I think, or at least a year ago we were at less than 5 million, to like now 50, right? And with that comes like we can now sort of just show that to these real businesses that there's actually this crypto stuff is not completely crazy, and it can actually work. It's not just all fake and paper or digital money, and I think that's the biggest thing. But then there's also um, like Maker, who we've been live with for a very long time. So actually, like over $10 million of loans were originated with DAI that was minted. We're actually now in sort of the last steps of launching the Aave, like the first Aave market, the real world asset market, which uses the Aave protocol to allow users to deposit into this market and earn sort of like interest on like a wide variety of assets, right? And just if most efficiently allocating to different borrowers that have a need for liquidity. And I think that's like the next big thing that we're doing, and it's gonna happen in the coming weeks. Of course, then sort of like we're talking about parachains here. That then I would say is coming after that, right? Like we're sort of like starting to see the DeFi ecosystem go live on Kusama. There's first projects doing that. I actually don't know what the KUSD supply is right now, but it's sort of getting to a point where now we're starting to look at that and saying, okay, how can we actually use Altair to do those things in Kusama and the Parachain, obviously on Polkadot. The goal there is then going to be to in the same way work with Akala, work with Moonbeam, with Kilt to sort of bootstrap this DeFi ecosystem.
So you guys mentioned on your website, there's like a ton of different use cases for what you guys are building. One of them is, for instance, like freelancers that want to get like take out a loan against like their invoices that they have, that they get access to their money quicker. I think all these things sound like really compelling, but like, how are you guys as a team, like informing people that this is even possible? Because I'm sure there are there's probably millions of freelancers, for instance, a huge marketplace for that. And I doubt many people actually understand how to do this or what it is or like how they could take advantage of it.
Yeah. So that's
how are you guys thinking about that?
So that's why I believe in a future where people will use crypto the same way they use their iPhones today, and it'll just be part of your crypto wallet will be something you use day in and day out. We're not there yet, I think, right? In terms of just how easy the technology is to use. It's not easy at all. How scalable it is. And just, yeah, the understanding, right? Like there's so much in usability, scalability, that still needs to happen for the world to get to that point where like, I'm just gonna like buy my pizza with crypto. And so what we're doing is, and that's we work sort of with what we call issuers. So the freelance invoices, there's a few issuers that we have that actually work with these asset classes. So for example, the Bling pool is Uber drivers and other delivery drivers in Europe. It's actually a startup that's financing these people. They built a simple to use app that any Uber driver can sign up with and get sort of like an early payment on their Uber revenue. And so they actually are the ones saying, okay, instead of us getting money from like a credit fund or like a bank, we're actually going to use Centrifuge, and we're going to put these loans that we originate, these with the app that our drivers use, and bring them on chain. And then as like on the other side, the Centrifuge, like users that want to invest in these pools or in these assets, they can now do that by going to the pool that's managed by that issuer. So these are like multipliers in a way, right? Multipliers and interfaces that basically abstract all of the difficulty of crypto, um, aggregate a bunch of different borrowers, and then let investors invest in that pool. And so we have now about 10 pools live, with like the Blink pool is one. There's like a micro lending in emerging markets. That's Branch. This is another Silicon Valley startup that's working, that we're able to bring their loans on chain. New Silver is a fix and flip real estate pool where they bring real estate on chain, right? And they're all doing that. New Silver right now is 20 million DAI in size, a little bit north of it, and that's 100 different loans to 100 different people.
So today, from practical terms, how can someone get involved with this? Like, are you guys approaching people and working with them like very closely in onboarding them to this, or is it something they can apply to online? Like, how does the process work?
So there's for the it's a bit different for the borrower and the and the investors or the lenders. The lenders, it's really like, I mean, what Centrifuge is it's a technology to create these pools, and this technology is used by our issuers basically to offer these assets to investors. And as a user, you can go to tinlake.centrifuge.io and you can look at these pools. You can see what's happening on chain, and if you want to provide a liquidity to one of these pools, you can actually sign up, request information on the pool, and then invest DAI in it. There is KYC, because those are regulated assets. But that is pretty simple, as easy as we can make it. If you're actually interested in borrowing from it, that is a bit more of a hands-on, involved approach for now. Of course, we're trying to simplify this as much as possible as well. But what we need to do or what anyone needs to do when they want to launch a pool is they kind of need to do a bit of financial structuring, but also like a bit of technical work to deploy these smart contracts. Today they're on Ethereum. In the future, it'll be actually on our Centrifuge Parachain, or on Altair. And so that work right now we usually help. We have different issuers who are doing it, and so that's a bit more involved. Where yeah, like, I mean, you can come to the community and propose a pool, and if there's a lot of demand and sort of a good fit, then I think there's people that can help you sort of get set up.
So Cassidy, from an engineering perspective, I mean, I think it's really easy to like live in the digital world and just kind of build out platforms and protocols, but you guys are really working closely with real world assets, people directly. Like, have you found it challenging to build a system that has to kind of accommodate the real world as well? Or like, what are some of the things that have like kind of surprised you as you've built out that capability?
I feel like, yeah, maybe even Lucas feels this a little bit more working hands-on with the issuers, but it is really dealing with the human side of things, that makes it tricky. Because it's one thing to build a software, and it's another thing to build software that's anticipating the needs of someone day to day. And I think, for example, with things like paying back these assets, and doing it in a way that makes sense both from a technical perspective but also from a human perspective. Like, okay, what are business hours? Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, and this is when someone's probably going to want to be using this product to actually pay back a loan on an asset. And these are different things that I think, as Lucas mentioned, when it comes to making it easier to use, that's the focus now. Right now, it's there, it works, and I think we've proven that. And the next step is really to make this easier and easier so that there isn't any handholding that needs to be done, that really someone could just come in and set up a pool, finance an asset, or provide liquidity to an asset pool without having any friction in that experience. So I think where we are now is that we've built something that works. And then I think the next really big step is scaling that and making it more usable.
Yeah, I think a lot of the projects in this space, in the crypto space in general, are dealing with anonymous individuals. There's this kind of mentality. It's like, well, we'll just build it, and a bunch of degens and apes will just come in and use these platforms, and then there's this like sorry for your loss mentality if people lose a lot of money. But you guys are like dealing with people that really they're trying to change their lives here with like these loans and like change their businesses and their fortunes. I mean, do you guys feel an added pressure to having to deal with customers that you kind of know more about than the typical DeFi platform?
I think it's not only a pressure, but also a connection. Like there's definitely a positive and somewhat negative, like stressful side of that. But I think in terms of the team that we have, we're a pretty sizable team now. I think almost 40 people. And I feel like every single one of us are really interested in that vision, that we're really building something to help people. And I think that drives us all a lot more than it would in maybe just a regular startup. But at the same time, it does create a little bit more stress that we're working with something real. And if we make a mistake, it's going to have a lot more of an impact, I think, on us. And so it does drive us to work a bit harder and with a little bit more thought and care, I think, than we would otherwise.
How far or close from your guys' original vision when you started all this do you think you are currently?
We started in 2017, sort of really thinking about it, and to put that into perspective, um, I think DeFi pretty much didn't exist yet. The Bancor ICO was in 2017, but like this idea of tokens being used for different things was there, but there's nothing in practice, and I don't think anyone could have imagined what this world looks like today. So in a way, I think it's kind of funny to look back at it, um, and compare what we were thinking back then to what's actually happening today. At the core, we're solving sort of the same problem. At We wanted to allow people better access to finance, better sort of like a better way to transact, by being able to use like open blockchains for trading, for sending, like for exchanging invoices, for like lending, right? Like, so these kind of ideas were there, but we didn't know that there's going to be this financial system effectively with different DeFi protocols so that you can use as different lenders, and like all this activity, right? And so I think the problems stay the same, and what we're solving, what we're addressing with it, but not. I don't think I could have imagined what it looks like today, and that's kind of super cool to see, actually, right? I think it's so much better. I would say DeFi as an idea is so much more powerful than just sort of what Ethereum, I think, was back then. So yeah.
Yeah, I I laugh because we talk like people come on the podcast and they're like, well, we were only able to get like 20 million, or I'm like, this is crazy, because when I started my crypto business, I think the largest fundraise for a crypto venture or project was like $20,000. Which is like, it's a joke. Like you can't really do much of anything with that, but that's where it was back in 2014, and things have come so far from that day. So you mentioned, Cassidy, you guys have an upcoming loan that's going to open up. I think you said on the 15th. It's about 5 days away at the time of this recording. How are you guys preparing for that auction compared to the Kusama auction? Have you guys changed anything up, or are you just repeating your successful bid from before?
Well, one big thing that's changed is that we're a lot less frantic about setting everything up this time around. We definitely had a lot more time to really prepare and make sure everything works well, test, the whole crowd loan process. So that's been great, being able to know what to expect. And I think one thing we're looking at with this crowd loan is um, well, one thing we were curious about is how, if we're going to get as much community participation as we did with Altair on Kusama. I think we were so excited to see how many individual contributors we had on Altair, and we were sort of waiting and curious to see if it was going to be the same case on Polkadot, and it really looks like that is the case. There's been tons of individual contributors of Dot. So I think from that perspective, we've really thought about keeping a lot of the same types of rewards because those are directed at these like smaller individual contributors. And so having this early bird bonus, having referral bonuses for different users, and then as well having this loyalty bonus is what we're calling it. You know, if you participated in Altair crowd loan and you also participate for Centrifuge, having those bonuses as well. So I think that worked out super well for Altair, and Altair really made it and was successful because of the community. And so we wanted to keep the community at heart again for the Centrifuge crowd loan too.
So in the Polkadot auctions, we saw the first two slots. I mean, tremendous amount of value locked up in these loans, which is incredible. As you guys are sitting there and observing what's happening there, does that change your strategy for like when you open your loan? I mean, obviously you guys are opening it here in a few days, and so you didn't do it like from day one. Were you just kind of aware that there were some big boys that were going to pop out at first, and you just kind of sit back and wait to get one of these other slots, or like how do you guys look at that?
I mean, we definitely knew that there were going to be these great teams like Hala and Moonbeam going for the first two slots. That didn't mean we couldn't go for batch one. I think the decision between batch one and batch two is really more for two different reasons. One was, you know, we still had this Altair launch happening and a lot of work to do there, and so we wanted to be able to focus on that a little bit as well. And then two, we're really counting on Akala and Moonbeam going live on Polkadot as Parachains so we can really use them and integrate with them. And so that means that letting them go first in batch one would actually give us a really great timing so that once we're live, if we get a slot in batch two, that would be early March, then they'll hopefully be launched and ready to go. And we can immediately start integrating with them from day one of our like full launch process.
So maybe share with us a little bit about like how are you guys planning to integrate with Akala and Moonbeam?
Like with real world assets, right? Like we need a bit of a mature DeFi ecosystem. I don't think it's the first thing that's going to happen on a chain, right? So like this is sort of why, as Cassidy mentioned, like it's good for us that we don't need to be the first actually, because without a stable coin we can't do much. And so Akala, obviously, the same that what we're doing with Maker today. With Akala, we'd love to have them accept sort of these different tokens as collateral and mint AUSD against them. On Moonbeam, I think, well, with Moonbeam itself, there's obviously probably a lot of these DeFi projects that have protocols on Ethereum-based or EVM-based chains today will also start moving to Moonbeam and offer that to the Polkadot ecosystem natively. Maybe also some new projects where I think it'll be very interesting for those kind of projects to accept real-world assets as collateral. And that's really like sort of our main way that we interact with other projects is our issuers create very interesting collateral. It's completely uncorrelated. It's very scalable. There's trillions of dollars in real world assets in the world, and those assets they want to borrow money, right? These like people buy houses, people go to school, businesses need to build new factories, and so there's this demand, and we just want to fill it with wherever we find liquidity, and that's stable coins, money markets. It can be right, and that can be on Moonbeam, on Akala, on Karura, really wherever possible. And so what we're thinking of, how do we get our tokens, so these assets, into different parachains and make them supported by them.
I think for
Uh,
us, it's been actually really easy to start these conversations with these other projects because the integrations are um, positive both ways. We need the DeFi liquidity that we're going to get from Moonbeam, Akala, using the Snowfort bridge to different chains, and they're getting really interesting asset types.
how surprised are you at the level of interest that we've seen with, both Akala and Moonbeam? I mean, those. I mean, I can't remember how much money. I don't know how much money they raised or got locked up into the loans, but it's tremendous. I mean, that's a huge vote of confidence for not only those two projects, but just parachains in general. Have you guys been shocked by the level of interest, or are you guys like, oh, finally people are paying attention to this gold nugget we have here?
I mean, maybe a little bit surprised. Um, I think it's a little bit of both. I think it's an amazing ecosystem, and I've definitely been waiting for people to realize that. It's been kind of frustrating having to time and time again explain how much value Polkadot and Kusama are bringing for us as a project, and we think for the whole blockchain ecosystem. And so it's definitely part of it is an about time feeling of, wow, people are finally realizing how much value is here. But at the same time, I guess, surprised and impressed at how much participation that there's been too.
So you mentioned earlier scaling up the kind of the project and everything, but let's talk a little bit about maybe scaling the team. How big is the team right now, Lucas?
36, 37, probably.
Are you?
Yeah, yeah.
I was just gonna say, are you guys hiring? I mean, and just for people, I'm not trying to leave Kraken. I'm just asking in general
Not too
if you're hiring.
bad. You- we don't have a podcast host position open yet, but probably soon if we're growing at that speed.
Okay.
Yeah, we are hiring actually. Just a few days ago, we were putting together all of the open roles in the next couple of months that we want to hire, and I think the list is about 10 to 12. Really, anything from Rust, substrate engineering to design. We have we were hiring another product manager. We're hiring brand and marketing. We're looking for what we call a DeFi politician. Or the job description's not out yet, but we sort of jokingly refer to it as a DeFi politician. So sort of like want to build a bit of a team that just interacts with all these other protocols. So yeah, so tons, yeah. And actually, like our team, we were 15 people at the like a year ago, so like roughly doubled in size. We try not to double in size again. I think it's really hard to grow teams sustainably, and our goal is not to make our team the biggest. Like actually, our focus will shift more towards enabling other teams in the ecosystem to build alongside us. So I think if we're going to be happy if we end up at 50 people at the end of next year, and so start really building out the ecosystem. But yeah, always hiring good people, of course, like anybody else here.
Now you kind of chuckled when you mentioned the DeFi politician position, but it seems from Twitter you've mentioned that you are actually venturing into a little bit of a political position yourself here. It says you submitted your candidacy for the Polkadot Council.
Yeah.
So what's the motivation for that, and then how's that going?
Um, I mean, I think with Polkadot going live, well, it's the network's live, a Parachain's going live. We need to make sure that we build out this ecosystem in the best way possible, fund the right teams, invest in the right kind of resources, and the council in Polkadot is sort of there to propose these ideas, right? Coming back to our origin stories in crypto, you mentioned 2014. Like my experience in 2017 is like uh, Polkadot's not the first early stage community that I've been part in and governance system I've been part in. And I think I've sort of over the years seen what works and what doesn't, and I'd love to sort of help and contribute to make sure we hit the ground running with regards to Polkadot. So that's actually yesterday I finally got around to do all of the transaction signing and account setup and so on, and yeah, should be getting into the council hopefully soon if we find enough supporters. So if you have
in 2017,
vote for me.
Yeah. Okay. Well, if you're listening and you want to support Lucas, make sure you get out there and vote. I think back in 2017, when a lot of the governance kind of talk was starting to kick up and people were kind of describing what we would see in the future, it was hard to understand how this would all happen on chain and whether it would actually work well. But Polkadot has been pretty amazing to see, just like the sheer ability to just upgrade the entire runtime like dynamically after looking at Bitcoin for years and like how much conflict there is every time anything needs to be changed or updated, and same for Ethereum and other chains. So it's pretty incredible and definitely inspirational, I think, for people that are moving into the blockchain space. Well, this has been like an amazing conversation. I'm really happy to have you guys on for the third time, and hopefully we'll make it a fourth or a fifth in the future.
When we win the slot.
That's right. So you got to win first. We can't promise anything. You got to go ahead and win that slot. But we'll leave it there. And I just want to say good luck. Is there where can people go to find out more about Centrifuge and Altair?
We've got a great website for information, centrifuge.io. And there's a lot of resources there to learn about both Centrifuge and Altair. If people are interested in looking at the pools that we've got and maybe locking in some DAI, that would be tinlake.centrifuge.io, and can also find us on Twitter and in our Telegram chat too.
All right. Well, there you heard it. You can go to those locations and we'll probably share the links on the YouTube page, and you can find out more about Altair and Centrifuge. Thank you so much for joining us today, and good luck in the future.
Thanks Brian.
Well, thanks again to our guests, Lucas and Cassidy. We wish them luck with their upcoming Centrifuge crowd loan, which starts on December 15th. Make sure you like, subscribe, and review us on your favorite podcast platform. And we will be sure to bring you along as we get a backstage pass to the world of Parachain auctions.
This content is not financial or investment advice. All interviews and discussions are opinions only. Kraken does not endorse the accuracy of this content. None of the following information should be construed as a recommendation to support any specific Parachain project or to participate in Parachain auctions in general. See our terms of service for more information.